Good evening and welcome to Critical Thoughts. It's just a few days after Thanksgiving, and while most people are out probably talking about politics and football, Jake and I have been discussing a lot about food lately. I guess it's kind of appropriate, right? Thanksgiving's a lot about eating and all that. So we finally got around to doing our debate like we promised. This one's supposed to be huge. It's going to be organic diets versus GMO diets, or genetically modified organisms. Jake's going to be in favor of GMOs. I'll be promoting organic foods. And the reason why we put this whole debate together is that we just noticed in the libertarian community there's this huge divide between which is better than the other. And often it gets into these ill-conceived ideas of what the other side believes. For example, a lot of people might think that I'm going to promote, forcing labels on things. If you're really a libertarian, you won't believe that. And Jake, is there any ones you heard out there where maybe people would get out of control with about GMOs? Commonly misunderstood.
First of all, War Eagle for everyone in Alabama. But there's one I saw once in the latest remake of the Looney Tunes, and it had Wile E. Coyote, and he's got the GMO crops, and they were like growing tentacles and sludge all over the place and things like that. It's not literally Frankenfood or something like that.
Yeah, Frankenfood. Frankenfood is definitely the big one they market, the syringe sticking out of the tomato or whatever. All right, so anyways, we're going to roll right into this. We got three for our own belief and 3 against our opponent's belief, with 1-minute rebuttals incorporated into it. And I'm just going to go ahead and start out the whole thing. So one of the reasons why I am for an organic diet is because of my overall improved health. Like ever since I swapped over to organic, I've noticed, 1, I don't hardly ever feel sick after eating the food. And 2, I have this overall cleaner feel about me. I went full on organic, and then I actually did time on a submarine for 2 months. That's a huge stark contrast between the 2 types of food there. So I ended up getting blocked up really bad for a week. Nothing came out except I ended up throwing up later. But eventually my body got used to what I was pumping into it. And I've also heard testimonials from people I've had over here. I've had guests stay at my house for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and they get on this organic food diet, and they're eating all the food I'm cooking them. And not only are they losing weight, but they're also saying they feel better afterwards. And it's like even now I can't go out to eat at restaurants. I have to be very choosy. Like there's a few fine dining joints I can hit up. That's about it. Otherwise, I find myself feeling like sick, like I just want to throw everything up. And you never get the meat sweats feels. So overall, yeah, that's my number 1 reason probably why I do organic. Jake, rebuttal.
All right. Well, this is coming from like a self-testimonial perspective, along with some antidotes, but one thing can be just your very experience itself. You went from just living in Alabama, eating probably maybe 40 to 60% kind of the fast food diets, the lower end type of meals, what's conventional foods and stuff, to going across the country, across the Atlantic, while changing your diet, changing exercise habits, being stressed with the Navy life. I'm sure being on a month in a sub, or months on a sub, wasn't really conducive to a nice, strict, regimental type of feeling of adequacy and, other emotional conditions. So my rebuttal with that is, I'm not saying organic food wouldn't necessarily be bad, but can you say that would just not be something that you could have gotten from other conventional foods if you ate them at the time, or, just a different lifestyle at the time?
Yeah, one would definitely say subfood. I'll at least concede to you subfood is like subpar, if you will. It's full of nasty preservatives. It's pretty rough on you. So I'll give you that one, anyways. So animal ethics is another reason why. So I think a lot about like the environment on which a lot of animals live in. For example, like with me, I get chickens that they actually get, what is it, like 20 to 200 square feet per bird. They get a natural diet. So something I look at is when you treat them right, they'll treat you right. You think about the food you put in your body. They say you are what you eat, right? So I would go as far as to say you are what you eats. So whatever that animal is eating, if it's eating like other dead chickens because it's been mulled over into the corn mill that's slopped in their troughs and they're standing on chicken wire, they probably aren't going to be healthy. There's actually a few studies out there suggesting that yes, animals that are ethically treated with a little bit of dignity, actually get out and get all their nutrients and that they're supposed to, are healthier and thereby healthier for you upon consumption. The same thing goes for cows. You had the problem with mad cow disease. Didn't ever see that with free range cows. And I think free range too is often something people usually, they're talking about free range with everything. Oh, these are free range celery, just trying to be smart asses. But I mean, there really is something to be said about it because again, healthy animal means healthy meat for you to consume. So, yeah, there's my number 2 for you.
My rebuttal to that would be that sounds more maybe of a condemnation of certain conventional farming practices now, but not GMOs entirely. There's nothing I can really say that contrasts with the GMOs because you can treat GMO chickens or any other GMO product the same way you would do free range. I know one of the things I get a hard grasp around with the animal ethics thing, though, is that fundamentally, when you're talking about humane treatment, the way I look at it is the most humane thing is respect for life. And yeah, I would love to try to treat animals as respectfully as possible, but ultimately, I'm having those animals for the purpose of eating them. They have to serve that purpose first. If that means, their lifestyle is less quality, they have to have less square acreage of free roaming, but I can get more meat out of it, or better production in some aspect that's desirable, cheaper. I'm going to go with that.
You're basically saying cheaper, but no, I'm not really saying I'm not against GMOs on this one per se. Granted, GMOs are often incorporated into the diets of the animals. I'm more so saying I prefer organic because organic usually means that the animals are treated better. They kind of coincide, and again, as I said, you get higher quality meat out of it. So
it's a mixed bag thing. I've seen some that say that. I've seen some that haven't. I've seen some that it's more specific. One of the bad things with conventional farming right now is usually there's some sort of arsenic that somehow gets into the diet, and if you remove that from it, who knows how that really affects the lifestyle of chickens per se. So.
Okay, and moving on to my third and final for organic diet is that you get a higher quality of food, not only with so far as health value, but so far as cooking. I like to cook at home a lot. Haven't eaten any fast food in years, other than maybe Chipotle. I don't go to McDonald's, for example. I haven't been to McDonald's in 5 years. Because, like I said, it does make me sick. But the last times I have tried it, I mean, I can't escape the fact that it makes me sick every time I go out and I find myself back against the wall. Have to eat it. It's crap. And then on top of that, though, it's lower quality. The flavor is just not quite there because it's mass produced. So whenever you go to consume it, it's for example a tomato. A tomato to me, I taste two different tomatoes, and I've done blind tests before, and I've been able to successfully identify which one is organic and which one's not, just by flavor, because a tomato that's genetically modified is so pumped full of water, and it's manufactured to the extent that you bite into it, it just tastes like maybe tomato flavored water if you're lucky. You get organic stuff, and you're getting top of the line ingredients. In fact, a lot of fine dining restaurants actually do go in the direction of organic, or at least locally grown, where small gardens are producing these, and usually those are non-GMO. So far as the processed food, though, I will say, yeah, usually the GMO food is better about putting chemicals in it to tell your brain that it's delicious. Oreos, for example, they're pretty good about having that chemical in there to tell your brain it's delicious. But if you want to get and I will say, organic has some where the guy's just epic fail, like Newman's Own. Newman's Own Oreos, stay away from them. That's like basically what I'd imagine Jake handing out at this debate. If it were live, he'd be it tastes how shitty these are, and he would win hands down on that one, because it's terrible. But you go out and you find the right stuff, but you're still talking about processed. But I will say, at least at the same time, even when you're talking about processed, it's usually, there's not nearly as many chemicals in that as, say, something that's non-organic. So there you go.
Well, I'll say, first of all, to defend my character, I wouldn't do that with the cookies, because I know you could probably counter with those coffee truffles, which were delicious.
Yeah, see? Hey, there you go. I was a concession if I ever heard one. All right, moving on. Wait.
As you said, the reports are mixed. Sometimes you get some small to moderate increases, sometimes you don't. A very interesting thing you said to me a while ago was with the flavor and how the tomatoes might feel chock full of water. Well, this is another thing. Maybe some of the studies are trying to better correlate this effect, but when you're doing these tests, ripeness is something to be considered. Are the tomatoes equally ripe when you do that? And another one is, essentially, there might not be any difference except that the conventional ones have more water. They've been watered more so that they're larger and have more volume, but the flavonoids in it, which give it its flavor, then becomes diluted. So it's not you literally getting more flavor, you're getting less water. And, that maybe that's a concern as far as culinary taste. But, that's a matter of opinion and not a matter of nutritional superiority or fact.
Yeah, we already went over that earlier. But, taste is definitely better with organic. That's a good point, Jake. All right. Did Sometimes. You have any? Huh?
Sometimes, Mr. Newman's
Sorry, cookies. Are you breaking the 1 minute limit here, Jake, with your rebuttal? All right, you've already made your point. GMOs definitely don't really hold a candle to organic when it comes to flavor. You made your point, Jake. All right, now tell me 3 things you're actually in favor of when it comes to GMOs.
All right, the main one I have to come out right off the bat is simple production. Estimates for organic food, at best possible scenarios, still fall short 15% of conventional food.
That ain't bad.
Well, considering we have billions of people that need to be fed that still haven't been being currently fed right now, that is a big problem, because we already know we have a problem right now with our food situation. And now if you try to encourage organics to dominate the market, you can take that problem and do a multiplier of around 1.15, roughly. And that's also considering the fact that even though right now with conventional food processes, there is some GMOs and in cases of corn, largely dominating in some countries, but it's not all over the place. It's not completely everything is GMO, even in conventional food storage. So that's my main thing. We've got to be able to feed the people that we have, and so far in this debate, I haven't really heard anything that says right out the gate that it's prohibitive to have GMOs. So have all the tools you need. That one seems to produce better. We definitely need that as part of the package.
Okay, and we're talking about America, right? Or are we talking about globally?
Globally.
Well, I can't speak for the rest of the country. I can speak for America, anyways, and that I have been digging a bit into that, and I do know that so far as starvation, obviously America doesn't have that problem. Number two, I think last I checked, about a third of the food that actually is purchased in America has ended up thrown away anyhow. A big problem with what we have right now is logistics. Basically, getting food to people without the government coming in with regulations and saying no, you can't feed the homeless, for example. So you think about prior, to the 1980s, for example, before there was any such thing, and even a good bit into the 80s. America's being fed just fine, and we weren't starving to death because of food shortages or famines or anything. So I'm pretty sure we can run organic. Pretty sure we can run organic, at least in America, and more so. I'm not talking about total annihilation of GMO, but I think organic is completely viable in the U.S.
Okay, so conventional does produce more, but since we are a first world country, we could probably handle a less productive means of food. Gotcha. Okay.
Quality over quantity, Jake.
And that's kind of nebulous sometimes as well, but alright. Second one, since we've already kind of hinted at it a little bit, is cost. More often than not, if you take any item that's conventionally made, GMO, versus organic, the organic will have at least 50 cents more, maybe $1 more, maybe more depending on the product. It's all well and good if you want to have that luxury item, if you want that quality taste as you want, but there's people that, quite frankly, can't afford it. But they need to be able to afford what they can afford.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Organic, sometimes it isn't cheap, but when you're talking about things like rice and beans, and I know for a fact I buy a bunch of bananas for maybe an extra dime more than conventional. And by the way, that's another thing you can taste the flavor in. You taste bananas at a hotel versus my house, you'll taste the difference, I assure you.
Well, you just mentioned hotel. I wouldn't want to taste bananas in any hotel.
Hey, but it's free banana, and that's basically what you're all about, is cheap food, so there you go. But, yeah, so far as the costs are concerned, though, a lot of people are paying people to make their food at restaurants. And so I say, why not make the investment in your own body? Because that's the only thing that's going to last you for sure the rest of your life is your body. Make that investment. Instead of going out to restaurants, make the food at your house, because you're cutting out the middleman, you're cutting out the overhead, the evil corporate capitalist pigs that are taking millions from you, all the people that are asking for $15 an hour for their minimum wage. You're cutting all that out, and it's going all being invested into your body because you're getting higher quality ingredients. So if I were to say there's a lot of people out there, I understand, that just can't afford it, and sometimes you got to limp by on ramen. I get that, but I'm saying, like, if you're making it like as much as I am, I'm like what you'd consider lower middle class, and I can afford it. I choose to invest in my body, and I think that's an investment worth making.
Well, there's a big gap between organic food and ramen noodles in between there, and if you're talking about just cooking your own food, yeah, you can do that with GMO food too. Might be cheaper most of the time. And it might be better for you because, fast foods, I know they lop it up full of grease all the time. But, let's see. Third point. As far as GMOs is concerned, as I hinted earlier, the only real difference between a GMO debate versus organic debate and organic versus conventional is GMOs don't necessarily prohibit anything to do with organic. It's organic that says one of our tenets is you can't have GMOs. So if you want the healthier, less pesticide-free food, go ahead. You don't have to buy Roundup Ready soybeans. They're making BT corn right now. BT is a natural pesticide that organic people use. It's part of their little list to get certified organic. That is an allowable pesticide. You can do crop rotation. You can do any of the policies that you want to make greater ethical animal and vegetable care with GMOs. It'll just be GMOs. And the only thing really standing against it, as far as the organic standard is concerned, is because they have a little line in there that says, we don't use GMOs. That's it. That sounds quite arbitrary to me and quite pointless most of the time.
Okay, and I actually have that. I'm actually going to be discussing that in the against, so I'm actually going to pass on the rebuttal on that one. So.
Okay, well, I guess you get to start off the rebuttal too. So.
Yeah, I guess we can all lead it into one. So let's see. I don't know. Fuck it. I'm going to go from the top of my list. So one of the bigger problems I have, and it kind of dabbles a little bit on what you said anyways, is talking about some of the chemicals that are used on GMO crops. One of my biggest problems is of course glyphosate. You know, the glyphosate is the chemical in Roundup they use to kill the insects. It's an insecticide. And oftentimes they've actually been able to trace this in the soil and in the aquifers, and there's been studies showing that it actually kills the bacteria in the soil that creates a natural process of breaking down the crops. So like in crop rotation, for example, it's what the bacteria in the soil is what make crop rotation so effective, is that they're breaking down materials in the soil from the last crop and continuing the cycle. So glyphosate kills off a lot of that. And if you think about it, if glyphosate's killing off that bacteria, what is it doing to the bacteria in your gut? Maybe that's what's giving you irritable bowel syndrome. I don't know, I laugh every time I say childish things like that. Also shows up in the water supply too, again, getting back to that. So it's something that a lot of these municipalities can't filter out. So whenever you go to drink your water, if you're drinking tap water, chances are, if you're living anywhere, especially like Iowa, I would imagine you're talking about BT corn. You know, these crops are genetically modified to put a lot of pesticides down. Actually, that's usually what they're genetically modified to do. A huge myth is that they're genetically modified to put out more food, but they're actually genetically modified so you can dump more glyphosate on it without killing them, thus having more product at the end of the day because all the insects are dead. Everything's dead. So that's probably one of my number one beefs with GMOs anyways.
All right. There's a ancient Adam in toxicology from Parcellus, and it goes, it's not the nature of a thing that makes it a poison, but the dosage. I know glyphosate is a pretty charged term right now. There's cancer concerns among other things. But if that's what it is at whatever current dosage it's doing right now, what about lower dosages? That's the thing right there. Second of all, you're kind of intermingling that with the BT. And BT corn, it naturally produces the toxin. So it's not that it's getting dumped in large amounts, larger than what you would see on an organic farm. No, they're both equivalent. But that's pretty much the main thing is, you gave an example of pesticides causing problems with GMO food. Well, with organics and crop rotations, you can have buildups of nitrates from the natural fertilizers that they use.
Hang on, I think we got our first caller of the night. Elaine from San Diego, you're on Critical Thoughts. What's on your mind?
Hello. Well, I was just thinking how I'm a mother, and I've educated myself over the years, and knowing what I know what's in this food these days, I don't feel comfortable feeding my child anything that has high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, any artificial colors. It's just not healthy.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and Jake would argue though that's how you save a penny though. I mean, that's how you save money, right?
Well,
I would say she can do as what she feels like doing, but she hasn't made a logical point.
So basically, she's asking Jake, how much is a child's life worth? I think that's what she's trying to get at.
I know. There's the child's life that could possibly be poisoned by organic or GMO foods, and then there's the child that's starving in another country somewhere that probably wouldn't be fed by organic. Hi, Steph, by the way.
That's not Steph. This is actually Elaine speaking, and we're going to let you go. We're going to continue this conversation. Thank you, Elaine, for the call. Yeah, that was Elaine. Jake, that wasn't... See, the GMOs, all that mercury they use to process the high fructose corn syrup starting to get to your head. Crazy.
What's mercury got to do with GMOs, Greg? See, you're falling back on conventional food processing, which, by the way, they stopped using mercury.
Yeah. Too bad it's already gotten to your head. So anyways, continue, Jake. What were you saying with the rebuttal?
With organic food processing, there's buildup of nitrates from the natural fertilizers, manure and such, which can be a problem if you've got a nice river or stream right next to your crops where runoff can happen. That's one of the things that even if you've got a tank of fish in an aquarium, you got to watch out for the buildup of nitrates. A quite organic, biological, naturally occurring toxin that can kill and cause harm to people and animals, and leave residue in water and soil.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd get more into rebuttal, but I think we're cutting into our time a little bit too much on that one. So I'm going to move on to my next beef, as the chemicals in the food. Our caller was actually just talking about that. She's talking about, some of the high fructose corn syrup in there. Is probably one of the big reasons why we're like one of the most obese nations in the world, is because they've shoved high fructose corn syrup into everything. So I guess like more so it's a cry for help, a cry of help from me to the people to be more educated about what you consume, at least, because there's there's GMOs where they don't, GMO buns where they don't have high fructose corn syrup, but for the most part, way things are now, your freaking buns, your ketchup, your pickles, basically everything in a McDonald's cheeseburger loaded down with high fructose corn syrup, enough to give you diabetes.
So a non-point.
Hang on. I'm pretty sure I'm not 3 minutes in yet.
Yeah, I don't have a caller of my own to eat up time, so.
Huh? What? There you go again with your crazy freaking GMO allegations. All right, so the other chemicals that concern me, though, is aluminum, for example. You won't ever find any aluminum in any organic products. You actually find them all the time in your baked goods, though, like especially your biscuits. You get Pillsbury, aluminum, and aluminum has been found to, at least it's suspected to be the cause.
Does this got to do with GMOs, Rex?
Because a lot of your GMO food has that.
That's not part of making GMO food. A lot of non-GMO foods have that. That's conventional food production. That's not GMOs.
Okay.
If you wanted that to be the debate topic, we could have made that the debate topic.
Yeah, I guess that's a little more in under the high quality food category. So I guess as far as chemicals, anyways, you're still going to have your high fructose corn syrup, your aspartame. The quality just isn't there the way organic is I guess what I'm getting at, sweetheart.
With some conventional food, yes. Which some of that is GMOs. That's not a commendation of GMOs. It's not even a condemnation of all conventional foods.
Okay, well,
if it's really a problem. We haven't gotten into that because it's really not the topic of this debate.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah. Nice loophole there, Jake. But I will say, though, you won't ever find it in organic, so there's one for organic anyways. And I guess the last one is this one's pretty huge actually too, is the monopoly on food. So you're talking about the genetic modifications. A lot of the genetic modifications they make on plants, and they're trying to make it through all the GMOs, is making them so that they're sterile. So a lot of farmers actually like to take their seeds and sow them again next year or whenever for their next crop. They save them up and they go and plant them and call it good. Well, that kind of cuts into profits, especially for companies like Monsanto. And what they do is they genetically modify it so they're sterile, they can't reproduce. And, eventually what that would lead to is, like, if so many people are going through this and finally you cycle through all the regular seeds and all you have are these GMO seeds that don't reproduce, essentially whatever company is holding on to these patents, they're the ones that get to name the price, whatever they want. They have full control over the food supply.
All right. First of all, that sounds more like a government problem than a food problem. Just like with how governments are interpreting IP law with that, you mentioned high fructose corn syrup. The main reason that's flooding the markets isn't because some plant somewhere is making a genetically modified food to produce so much of it in the food. It's because of sugar subsidies that the government provides so that we grow sugar here, flood our markets with our more expensive sugar, and, people are going, well, this sugar costs too much. What can we do to supply the demand for sweetness in this country? High fructose corn syrup. There you go. Another thing, let's see.
So if you're pro-government, go with GMOs. Got it.
No, there's monopolies in organic food markets as well. There's the, the Horizon Dairy Food Products. That's a big company from China. They got their own corner in that market, and most of the distribution subsidies help to fuel that marketplace to distribute that milk, those dairy products. Government problem is a problem everywhere. Organics is not immune to it.
Okay, well, those are my three against. Let's hear yours against organic.
First one is the purity claims. No chemicals, no pesticides, or at least fundamentally less. Most of the times when you're talking about these things, there might be one or two, maybe 5 or 6, depending on what type of product you're talking about, more than the alternative. And that's just a plea for simplicity, I guess. It's not really an indictment of the chemicals themselves most of the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, that sounds pretty fucking good to me. Less is usually more, right? The more chemicals you have in there, for example, like a lot of chemicals that aren't tested, like your artificial colors, artificial flavors, aspartame, neotame now that they're coming out with, high fructose corn syrup. There's like a lot of these tests that they haven't run on these that
again, GMOs. What's this got to do with
that? You keep it simpler when you go organic. Well, no, I'm saying in favor. I'm defending organic now this time. I guess this format's really fucking confusing, but let's try not to be so rigid here, Jake. I'm speaking in favor of organic against where you were speaking against.
Okay, well, GMOs can do the same thing. It's a purity claim. There's nothing about GMOs that suggests that it can't have some of those same stringent standards.
Whereas with organic, they do not have this stuff in it. But with GMOs, they might not. But then again, if you want to play that game of Russian roulette as to what's going to be in it and what effect it's going to have, you go right ahead. And I think that's something our caller might also have been concerned about.
When you put in your policy that you can't have GMOs in organic food, you're automatically excluding that from that category, even though you can have them in a company that meets every single one of those criteria, except, of course, they've got GMO food. So are you really getting that quality, or are you just paying for the label because it sounds nice?
And sometimes you may be. I'm not going to deny that. I mean, it's definitely one of those, like, you know, it could be as bad as GMOs, but then you're still saying, well, it could be just as bad. Or, you know, that's worst case scenario is just as bad as GMOs. Best case scenario, it's like what I usually get, where it's higher quality, and if it ain't, I just stop buying it. I just go with another organic brand that actually brings what I desire. But anyways, way past rebuttal on that one, Jake. Let's go to number 2. We're at, just so you know, we're at 36 minutes now, so.
Okay, well, I think there's been enough rebuttals just tied up into our back and forth. I'll just skip the other 2 if we're coming that close to time. I didn't expect a random call to come in. Oh my God,
we have 10 minutes, sweetheart. Jeez, stop making excuses, man. You didn't lose that bad. I mean, you didn't lose like as bad as Bama did in this football game, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think you did pretty well. You got 2 more against, or did you just run out of ideas because organic's really that awesome and you're coming around to realize that?
No, not really, because we're kind of treading over all the same territory, especially since you get to go outside of the GMO versus organic debate, and I'm kind of just stuck within it because I follow the rules of a debate.
All according to plan. All right. All right, well, with that being said, I guess we aren't going to make any more forward progress on that. It's my moment to stump for a candidate in San Francisco right now. He's running for city council. Joshua Tomlock, you've heard me talk about him before. I'm looking at his page right now. He's only got, well, I say only, actually, considering he's the underdog candidate, he's a libertarian, so he's definitely working against the machine on this one, and he's got $3,300 right now, and I'm actually going to make a challenge out to anybody watching this video. I'm sure like my organic smugness is probably annoying the hell out of you right now. So if you want to do anything about it, you go to this guy's page, and if by New Year's, I'll provide the link too, by the way. If by New Year's that donation reaches 5,000, I will go to McDonald's and I will order a number 1, and I will sit down in front of this camera and I will eat it in front of you and hopefully not vomit. So, highly encourage you to get out there and support this guy. He's definitely is about as grassroots as you can possibly get, and he's definitely picking up some steam out there. The election is actually in 2018, so yeah, support him when you can. Any final thoughts before we close out tonight, Jake?
Well, hopefully he does well, and we get to see you eat a burger.
You would. I tell you right now, this guy's donating probably at least a couple hundred just to see it happen. But anyways, thank you again for tuning into Critical Thoughts, bringing through the white noise to bring you the media that matters.